guys, welcome back to another video. Today is the first video of 2024, so it's an extra special one. I thought, why not do a video that was sort of kind of using all of the leftover chocolate that you get at Christmas, in particular Ferrero Rochers. So today we're going to make Ferrero Rochers, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Ferrero Rocher NYC cookies. So super yummy recipe. As always, all of the ingredients and the quantities are in the description box below. So let's get into it. So first off, we have our butter. So we're going to pop our butter into our KitchenAid. Again, if you don't have a KitchenAid or a mixer, just use a handheld one. That works perfectly fine. Otherwise, you can actually use your hands. You don't need to do this with a KitchenAid or a beater. So we're just going to put our butter and our sugar. So we have white sugar and brown sugar in this recipe. Makes our cookies lovely and like caramelly and chewy, which is exactly what we want. So we're going to pop those into our KitchenAid, and we also want to make sure that our butter is super cold, because we basically don't want to beat the butter and the sugar together. We don't want any creaming in this. We're literally just mixing it until it's somewhat combined, and then we're going to stop and add on the rest of our ingredients. So we'll just pop this on a low until everything has sort of come together, and then we'll stop. All right, so now that that has all come together, you can sort of see that there's chunks of butter in there still, and it's not fully mixed, but that's exactly what we want. We are going to grab our chocolate. Now, for our chocolate, we have two different types. We have some dark chocolate here that is actually only 40%, so it's somewhat of a dark milk chocolate. And then we have some crushed up Ferrero Rochers. Now, one important tip here is I have used 16 Ferrero Rochers in this recipe, but 9 of them I have frozen because we're actually going to put them inside the cookie. So we have 7 Ferrero Rochers that we have cut up and just chopped into sort of like quarters. We're going to add those in to our butter and sugar. And then we've also got our milk / dark chocolate. You can use whatever kind of chocolate you want here. I've just opted for a milkier chocolate rather than sort of like a super dark chocolate, because Ferrero Rochers are normally milk chocolate anyway. So we're just going to mix this together until it is somewhat become one. We don't want it to be like overbeaten in any way. We just literally want to combine it. Like so. Very easy. We don't want to crush anything up, and obviously the Ferrero Rocher mixed, the actual Ferrero Rochers are, you know, little wafery little nuggets, so we don't want to break them up any more than we need to. Okay, then next up we have our flour, our nuts, our baking powder, and our salt. So first off, we're going to add in our flour. So we've got a little bit of self-raising flour and a little bit of plain flour. This is sort of just to give the cookies a bit of rise, but we don't want them to be like cakey. So we're going to add, I'm just going to take this off while I pour this in. We're just going to add our flour like so. Pop this back on. We're going to add our baking powder and our salt. Our chopped hazelnuts. So we obviously want to get a little bit of the crunch in there, because obviously Ferrero Rochers are basically chocolate and hazelnuts. That's where you get that sort of like Nutella, Ferrero Rocher kind of flavour from. So we still want to keep that crunch element in there. So I've just chopped up some hazelnuts. So we'll add those in as well. And then we're going to give this a nice old mix up. Again, as I'll say before, we don't want to overmix this. We basically want it to become sort of like a sand-like small breadcrumby consistency. We don't want to overwork the dough at all. So just go until you get that sort of really dry, sandy breadcrumb consistency. All right, so we're pretty much there. It is pretty much looking like the texture of ground almonds. So really sort of like sandy, but not super, super fine. So to that, we're going to add 1 egg. Ooh, we'll do that on the side of the bowl, I think. We'll add that egg in, and then we'll give that a final mix up until everything has sort of come together. You'll find that the dough itself is quite dry, and that is totally fine because we'll sort of work it with the butter. Once the heat of our hands melts the butter a little bit, you'll find that it comes together really, really nicely. So we'll just give that a final mix through until that has all been dispersed. All right, so now that is all looking lovely. It's all come together really nicely, and it smells absolutely delicious. It smells literally like Nutella. So bloody chuffed with that. You can see it's got lovely little chunks of nuts in there. You've got the Ferrero Rochers, the chocolate, absolutely beautiful. What I have done is I have preheated my oven to 180 degrees Celsius. I have also popped in my baking tray. So this basically means that when we pop our cookie dough onto the baking tray, we get really lovely crispy bottoms in our cookie, which is exactly what we want. So, and then a lovely little like gooey center. Now, if you want, as a top tip, if you want to, and you have the time to, you can actually freeze your dough, your cookie dough. You can freeze this for sort of 2 to 12 hours, however, or even overnight if you like, however long you want, because it obviously keeps in the fridge. And this will make your cookie dough, very, very chewy and crispy on the outside, quite full, very New York City cookies, which is absolutely delicious. And if you do have the time to do that, I would recommend doing that. However, for today's recipe, we are going to pop them straight into the oven, just because time is not on our side. Okay, so we have our cookie dough at the ready. Everything is all mixed in and lovely. We have our 9 frozen Ferrero Rochers that I've just grabbed out of the freezer. I've got my black gloves on just to not get sticky with the cookie dough. I've got my scales, and I've got a little container here. We are going to make roughly around 9 cookies with this dough. Now, these are quite sizable cookies. So I'm aiming for anywhere between 90 grams of cookie dough before adding your Ferrero Rocher in. So that's 110. So we just want to take a little bit more off. We'll just take a little bit more off. Because you've got the chopped hazelnuts in there and that chocolate, it does add up quite quickly. So this is a lovely 90 gram ball that we've got here. We're just going to grab one of our Ferrero Rochers, move that there, and just pop him inside, and then just cover him with all of that lovely cookie dough until he's completely concealed. And then that is literally it. Then we pop it into a container, and then we just keep going. So, 85, close. We'll get your 90 grams of cookie dough. Make a nice wee well in the center. Grab your Ferrero Rocher, stick him inside, and just cover him up so he's lovely and protected. You don't need to worry too much about making sure that these cookies are completely smooth on the outer edge. They look actually a lot nicer when they're not so smooth. But if you're a perfectionist and you want them to move, I obviously do what you like. All right. Pop him in. Okay, so we basically have 8 really big balls, and then we have one slightly smaller one, which is absolutely fine. Now the reason why we freeze the Ferrero Rocher balls is purely so that they don't melt out when we pop them in the oven. If we were to freeze the whole entire cookie dough balls themselves prior to putting them in the oven, we probably wouldn't need to freeze them, but just so that we really secure that Ferrero Rocher inside the cookie dough, that just helps us avoid any spillage or anything like that. So I have my cookie dough balls at the ready. We will clear the decks and then we can pop them in the oven. Okay, I have my very hot baking tray out of the oven with some baking paper. I'm just gonna work really quickly and pop this baking paper down and just quickly pop our lovely, beautiful cookies on our baking tray. Now I'm probably only gonna be able to get 6 on this baking tray. So we're just gonna pop them on there, and then we're gonna pop them into the oven for roughly around 20 to 24 minutes, depending on how you like your cookies. I love them super, super soft and really gooey inside, so I tend to pull them out a little bit sooner. But if you like yours lovely cooked through and nice and crispy, then leave them in for the full 24 minutes. So we shall see you soon. Alright guys, welcome back. So our lovely cookies have come out of the oven. They are lovely and cooled down now. Now, honestly, if this doesn't look like a bloody enticing cookie, then I don't know what does. You've got a lovely little crunchy bottom. I don't know whether you can hear that. Like, that is the bottom of the cookie, and that's why it really helps to have that baking tray really nice and hot. So obviously we are not done yet. Classic Lauren. So what I've got here is I've got some Nutella that I have just popped in a piping bag, and I'm just going to top these off a little bit more. Now, it's not a Ferrero Rocher if you don't have that sort of like gold classic classy wrapper. So I have some gold pearl spray from the brand Cake Craft that I'm just going to spritz on the top of each of the cookie, just to give it that lovely little element of classiness. So we're just gonna pop a lovely little blob of Nutella on our cooled down cookies. Please make sure that these are cooled down, otherwise your Nutella will run, which you obviously don't want. So we will pop a lovely little blob on the top. To that we're going to add our hazelnut to the top. So I've just got one for each cookie just to polish it off. Actually, that hazelnut looks a bit sad, so I'm going to change him to another one. There we go. Like so, and then just to really give it that extra classy. Oh, I forgot one. Oops. Sorry, buddy. There we go. Now, just to really, really polish it off, I'm going to give it a bit of a spritz with the gold spray. Like so. So as you can see, it just looks really, really classy. It's just a little bit of extra detail. Let's zoom in on that. All right, now it would be rude to not try one of these. So let's have a little nibble. And I actually am going to break it open as well so you guys can see the Ferrero Rocher inside. You've got the lovely crispy outer edge of that cookie. You've got the soft, gooey center of that little Ferrero Rocher in there, and then the lovely drizzle of Nutella on the top. Now let's have a wee nibble. That is so good. Now, because you've got the nuts of the exterior of the Ferrero Rocher, it almost adds more nuts to it. So it's a really nutty cookie, super crunchy, It is so yummy, and I need to get into this Ferrero Rocher. I mean, look at that. I'm bloody chuffed with that. That is honestly delicious. I'm now covered in Nutella, so I apologise. But I hope you enjoyed this recipe and enjoyed the first video back for 2024. There is plenty more recipes to come, so please stay tuned. Feel free to like, share and subscribe. And we shall see you in our next video. Bye guys!